Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about the Russia-Ukraine war, a day after accusing US President Joe Biden of risking World War III with his U-turn on long-range weapons for Ukraine. Russia has revised the country's nuclear strategy. You heard that right. 2 days after Biden's decision, Russia's nuclear strategy has been updated. It basically states that Moscow will be viewing aggression from any non-nuclear country, but in collaboration with a nuclear power, as a coordinated assault on Moscow. In fact, the Kremlin started this new wave of nuclear saber-rattling today, indicating that the updated military doctrine would potentially lower the threshold for the first use of nuclear weapons. And what's more, Russia has also started manufacturing mobile bomb shelters. The question is World War III now inevitable? Is Russia gearing up for a nuclear escalation? Let's start off with the latest. Have a look at these visuals on your screen. What do you reckon this is? Well, it's a bomb shelter. But you see, this is no ordinary bomb shelter. These bomb shelters basically are mobile and radiation resistant, and Russia has started producing them en masse. According to Russia's Emergency Ministries Research Institute, these bomb shelters can be used to protect against a variety of man-made threats as well as natural disasters, including radiation and shock waves. In fact, they call it the Cub-M shelter, K-U-B-M shelter. They look like a reinforced shipping container, but they can actually protect against radiation reportedly, debris, fires. They can also be deployed anywhere in Russia's northern permafrost. One standard shelter can accommodate 54 people, but additional modules can be added. But why does Russia really need radiation-resistant bomb shelters now? Could it be because Ukraine has, for the first time, started firing the American long-range missiles into Russia? That's right. A day after Washington gave its permission, Ukraine basically wasted no time. And on Tuesday morning, Kiev's forces fired attack-Ms on Russia's Bryansk region. According to Russia, 5 missiles were shot down, 1 damaged, with its fragments causing a fire at a military facility in the region. And the strike basically represents the first time the long-range missiles have been used on Russia's internationally recognized country. Responding to the attacks, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the attack was a clear signal that the West wanted to escalate the Ukraine conflict. Listen in.
The fact that ATACMS was used repeatedly in the Bryansk region tonight, of course, is a signal that they want to escalate the conflict, and it is impossible to use these high-tech missiles without the Americans. Putin has said this many times.
After all, Russia is the one that has updated its nuclear doctrine. Just 2 days after Biden's arms decision, Moscow updated its doctrine, which basically allows Moscow to consider aggression from any non-nuclear state, but with the participation of a nuclear country, as a joint attack on Russia. On Tuesday, the Kremlin said that the revised military doctrine would, in theory, lower the bar to first use of nuclear weapons. Nuclear deterrence is a pillar of Russian military doctrine, but the revision appears to broaden the definition of what would be considered aggression against Russia. The revised doctrine is clearly meant to send out a strong signal to Ukraine's Western backers. You see, it's supposed to remind the West about the possible consequences of providing more sophisticated and far-reaching weaponry to Ukraine. But Russia has also escalated its campaign against Ukraine. In recent days, Russia has blanketed the country with drone and missile attacks. Attacks that seem aimed in part at destroying civilian energy infrastructure as the winter approaches. Russia's doctrine change follows a consistent pattern of threatening rhetoric, now 1,000 days old. Still, the revision of the nuclear doctrine adds a new level of credibility to Russian threats of escalation, particularly as the new administration under Donald Trump prepares to take office in Washington. But what does all of this mean? Does Russia expect the Ukraine conflict to turn nuclear? All signs at this point are pointing towards this. You see, the war in Ukraine is entering what some officials say could be its final, most dangerous phase. Russian forces have advanced at their fastest pace on the battleground since the early weeks of the conflict in 2022. But most importantly, the announcement came just as the Biden administration agreed to allow Ukraine to fire American long-range missiles deep into Russia. Is this Russia sending out a message to Washington with this decision? Remember, on Monday, the Kremlin called Biden's decision a reckless decision. The Kremlin also cautioned that the move would draw the U.S. directly into the conflict with Russia. You see, since the Ukraine war started, Russia has lowered the threshold under which it would consider using nuclear weapons. And with the new decree, it essentially restates and makes official the terms set out in September's proposed revision, which, remember, said that Moscow would consider any assault on it supported by a nuclear power to be a joint attack. It also specifies that an attack on its ally Belarus would be seen on an equal footing to Russia. And in addition to updating its nuclear policy, Russia has increased its missile production. New satellite images showing significant expansions at 5 facilities where solid fuel missile engines are manufactured. And this suggests that the Kremlin intends to substantially enhance its missile production amid the ongoing war in Ukraine. The sites are in the Altai Republic in Siberia, Rostov in southern Russia, outside Moscow, and St. Petersburg, and in Perm in western Russia. Meanwhile, its forces have continued to make advances on the battlefield. On November 18, the Russian Defense Ministry released a video claiming that its forces had taken control of the village of Novoleksivka in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk region, advancing village by village. Russia, since August, has recorded its fastest gains in Ukraine since the first year of the war. While the world wonders what Putin's next move might be, the answer is already coming from the front lines. Russia is fully prepared and willing to remind the West about the consequences that it can face if the red lines, the so-called red lines, continue to be crossed. Although the new administration of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump may change the Kremlin's response to Biden's decision to authorize Ukraine's use of the missiles, remember, Trump, who will assume office in just over 2 months, has vowed to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Even though Trump is yet to make a statement regarding Biden's decision, his son, Donald Trump Jr., has criticized it, saying, I'm quoting, "The military-industrial complex appears to want to ensure that World War III is on the horizon before my father can establish peace and protect lives," quote unquote. After 1,000 days of conflict, will there be peace in Ukraine, or will the Biden administration further aggravate the situation and trigger World War III before Biden leaves the White House? To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.